Is there anything else you want me to say?
Let's see. So it's part
Part
five
five
of
of the
Yuri
Russian.
Bezminov. We're continuing our discussion into Yuri Bezminov. This is part five. Like and subscribe below,
Like, just
and
subscribe
let's
below.
get into
That's the
it.
one I always forget.
Yeah,
I
and
write
then
it down, so
yeah,
maybe I can remember.
and then we'll just go. Let's get into it.
Yeah, but
If you want, and you don't want to say something like "Let's get into this," you could
yeah,
always just say like after you say like and subscribe below,
yeah.
I'll hit play.
All right, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Mac Ruiz and I, Jerry Delemus, are going to be talking about Yuri Bezminovs, part five, the former KGB agent, and the plans in which the Russian government had put in plan, Soviet Union had put in plan to infiltrate our country. So here we go. Like and subscribe below.
Yogi, a great spiritual leader, or maybe a great charlatan and crook, depending on from which side you're looking at him. Beatles were trained at his ashram in Hardwar in India how to meditate. Mia Farrow and other useful idiots from Hollywood visited his school, and they returned back to United States absolutely zonked out of their minds with marijuana, hashish, and crazy ideas of meditation. To meditate, in other words, to isolate
Like
oneself from the current social and political issues of your own country, to get into your own bubble, to forget about troubles of the world. Obviously, KGB was very fascinated with such a beautiful school, such a brainwashing center for stupid Americans. I was dispatched by the KGB to check what kind of VIP Americans attend this school.
That's you on the left.
Yes, I'm on the left. I was trying to get enrolled in that school. Unfortunately, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi asked too much. He wanted $500 American for enrollment. But my function was not actually to get enrolled in the school. My function was to discover what kind of people from United States attend this school. And we discovered that, yes, there are some influential members of family, public opinion makers of United States, who come back with the crazy stories about Indian philosophy. Indians themselves look upon them as idiots, useful idiots. To say nothing about KGB, who looked at them as extremely naive, misguided people. Obviously, a VIP, say a wife of a congressman,
What would you think about
or a
today's
prominent
Hollywood people?
personality, after being trained in that school, is much more instrumental in the hands of manipulators of public opinion and KGB than a normal person who understands, who looks through this type of fake religious training.
Why would they be more susceptible to manipulation?
I just mentioned that because, you see, a person who is too much involved in introspective meditation. You see, if you carefully look what Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is teaching to Americans, is that most of the problems, most of the burning issues of today can be solved simply by meditating. Don't rock the boat. Don't get involved. Just sit down, look at your navel, and meditate. And the things, due to some strange logic, due to cosmic vibration, will settle down by themselves. This is exactly what the KGB and Marxist-Leninist propaganda wants from Americans, to distract their opinion, attention, and mental energy from real issues of the United States into a non-issues, into a non-world, non-existent harmony.
Well,
Obviously,
I give
it's
them
more
kudos
beneficial
they've
for
been
the Soviet aggressors.
100% successful in that right now. If you look at the news
Yeah.
today, what's going on, the condition of our society, is they certainly have done that. You think about the issues that they fight about on politics right now, especially the left, if you will, it's they're non-issues.
Right.
They're non-issues.
Mm-hmm.
And the factual stuff they just ignore. I
Yeah.
just heard today on the radio that they're coming up with some Z and Zim, and instead of using he, him, and her or whatever because of the transgender nonsense, they're putting a Z in front of everything. And that's what I took out of it at any rate. And it's just stupid non-issues.
Yeah.
And that are relevant to what? A minority of people that that the media, who probably attended that college he's talking about, or university, or at least the leadership has, and that's what they focus on. And
Right.
it's like, listen to Nero play, what a great fiddle he plays while Rome burns, and but not do anything about the fire. You know, when the riots were happening with the Black Lives Matter groups, and that one, I think it was CNN reporter, was standing with buildings on fire behind him, and he's going, "No, it's a peaceful protest. You know, there's nothing," and the freaking buildings are on
I
fire
know.
behind him. It's insane, and yet people take it as truth.
Right.
And it's I don't know. I guess they just love to lie, and but it is frustrating. Where reality, of course, you know, is the fundamental attack on reality, is on the truth. That's
Right.
what this is all about. That's what Russia was doing. Soviet Union was doing, was attacking the truth, because what they couldn't sell what they wanted to have happen if they told the truth. So
Mm-hmm.
they've got to have a lie, and because it's a con. And what they end up wanting is just supreme control over everybody, tyranny. And but they want everybody to give it up willingly. And just like he was talking about these people meditating, you know, you meditate, look at your own navel, and don't do anything with what's going on around you. Have no involvement.
Right.
Don't even acknowledge the truth of what's happening. I mean, you look at the FBI, what the FBI's been up to. It's crazy. Now we just have Trump, matter of fact, just getting investigated again. You know, they fired a special counsel to go after him yet again. I think it's the third one. And why? Because he's a threat to the people I think probably went to that university and their plans. And
Right.
it's crazy. And then we go. Even Hannity said, you know, I got so tired of listening to Hannity say that oh, it's only the top 1% of the FBI. And that's BS.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not
all
the top
it's
1%.
all of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Because you're complicit if you are in that infrastructure and you're not willing to stand against it. I mean,
That's right.
they swear an oath to the Constitution.
yeah, uphold it.
Yeah.
Uphold it. And it's insane, because if it was just the leadership and the troops wouldn't follow it, well, then it wouldn't happen. But when the troops just blindly go by because they're worried about their job or a promotion or whatever, their income, whatever it happens to be, or they just want to put a smile on their boss's face, is when they do that, well, they're committing evil, a lot of illegal activities, and people are surprised at the condition of our country. I mean, they've been going after. If they're going to go after Trump, again, they're going after all of his friends again. And what they're trying to do is intimidate anybody who stands up against the establishment of what's going on. Well, we've got a guy in the White House whose son was corrupt, taking money and funneling it through these little LLCs or whatever they were. I think
Yeah.
some type of corporation, the LLCs, and to his father and the rest of the family. And lots of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so what happens? Nothing. The
Right.
FBI doesn't care. They don't look at it. And it's not that. I mean, if Trump was a criminal and he broke the law, I said they go after him. Absolutely, go after him. I don't care if they have an R or a D behind their name. If they're corrupt, get rid of them. And but just because they have one letter over the other, don't let them get away with it.
Right.
And it's really frustrating. You know, what he's saying is almost like prophetic to where we're at today,
Mm-hmm.
and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
getting worse.
Yeah, and that's so. I mean, a lot of what he's saying here, and off of what you're saying is and we've been doing that, at least I would say strongly. Your sociology departments have been doing that for a good 50 years now.
Yeah.
And you know, I understand the idea of breaking things into subsections, right? You know, categorization. But the problem is that in the process of doing said science, they start identifying with their categories. You know, like before, if you were dealing with, let's say, somebody with gender, dysphoria,
Mhm.
you would refer to
I mean, the confused people. Yeah, okay.
right. Well, whatever reason they are that way, that is what it is. And the medical side of the industry would ID them, not them
Mhm.
identify themselves. It's very different when you start self-identifying, right? But when there's a privilege attached to identification of said groups, that's where real dangers start happening. And we see that now. Affirmative action is a good example of early on, and affirmative action existed when Yuri was talking about this. And you could make an argument that affirmative action might have been one of the first ways to give privilege to a subgroup.
Yeah, well, affirmative action is racist.
Oh, 100%. Right.
And just treat everybody the same. Just make sure don't give anybody a leg up. Give everybody a leg up or nobody a leg up.
Right.
But it's got to be one way or the other. You know what this reminds me of is there was that guy, I think they call him the Bear Man or Grizzly Man. He went up to Alaska or whatever, and he was staying out in the woods, and he was playing his guitar to the bears, to the grizzly bears.
Yeah.
And he'd be out there strumming away, playing with them. Well, I don't think he got married yet, but he took his fiance out there for her to it. He's making all these videos, and he's getting up by close to these grizzly bears and playing music and all. And then I remember there's one where he's playing with the grizzly bear and the camera's on the tripod. And all of a sudden the camera goes over and all I hear is screaming, the freaking grizzly bear killed him and his girlfriend. Both ate him.
Yep.
It's and he thought, oh, well, I've got them all tamed. I can hug him. Well, you think about right now the condition of the United States militarily.
Mm-hmm.
First off, there's none of our enemies, which would be the Soviet Union and many of those former Soviet Union countries, which would be Russia, one, and some of the other communist countries that are communist, China, North Korea, don't like us at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they are our enemies. But it's one thing when they don't like you, but it's another when they don't respect you and they don't fear you.
Right.
And when they don't do that, and they're building up their military while we've got people in Washington who are depleting ours, is we act like, oh, well, they'll never attack us, because we're America. They'll never attack us. Really? You think that? You remember the story about Pearl Harbor?
Mm-hmm.
And they do attack. They will attack. I mean, Ukraine probably didn't think they were going to get invaded by Russia for a while anyways. They probably didn't think it. And but they do attack. Just like that guy didn't think that grizzly bear would attack him because he was playing great music for him, and singing them nice little songs. And we have got ourselves terribly exposed. China's Navy is bigger than ours, and their military is huge. And plus, they've got their Air Force, and so the Soviet Union, and they're all kind of aligning together. If you notice, North Korea, and it's not like they're enemies of each other more than they hate us. And we need to be really careful.
I would say China's military is bigger than ours for sure. Their Navy isn't. Their Navy is...
I just heard a report their Navy was bigger than ours.
They've got one aircraft carrier. Now they're ramping up that production. China's biggest issue with the military is that their armament, specifically in jets, are 15 years behind. Where China, the threat in China, and I'll be perfectly honest, I think that the big threat in China is they have two big weapons against us. Stop sending ships to us.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop the supply chain. That's
COVID.
One big one. And then
COVID.
I think COVID was us. I'll be honest. I not to go down that rabbit hole and open up an Alex Jones and start yelling at the mic at the top of my lungs, but it's like I think that the CIA was involved with that. I think we were involved with that. We funded that lab.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah, with
that's
old
why I mean
Mr.
I
Dr. Fauci.
I think that was ours. That was us. We did that through China. Used China, I think, as a scapegoat. I think that
Well,
you
are we doing investment money and with China on that kind of stuff anyways? It's you know why? Because they couldn't do it here.
exactly. There's too many eyeballs here. Look what
Yep.
happened with the Boston University.
Mm-hmm.
They did gain of function on that thing, and that hit the media, and it hit the media so fast and hard that I don't know what's going on with that program, but I bet you that they're dealing with massive ramifications of the entire country finding out. You do it in China, and the Chinese government says you don't say anything or you die.
Right.
They don't say anything, and then so we do work there in China now militarily. China, things that they'll do, I could see them throwing, they knock in our sats out, and then they'll hurt themselves doing it too. Power grid, right? Like an EMP, throw a nuke into space, let it go off in space. It'll wipe our grid out, it'll wipe their grid out, Now, will they be able to fight a war like that? No, not much better than we will.
In World War II, we had a much smaller military than Japan had, and Germany combined certainly.
Right.
And our weaponry was far beneath the quality of the stuff that Germany and Japan was making. And
the one thing that
we beat them in sheer numbers because we had production, but we don't have those production capabilities anymore.
Right. Yeah, we definitely don't have the production capabilities.
China.
Right.
And God knows who else.
So
I mean, we just better be careful.
Yeah, I mean, the only way, because the whole reason we've never been invaded at this point, and you could make an argument for the, like Pearl Harbor, but Pearl Harbor was more akin to not to sound, like, my generation completely, but more like a terrorist attack. Because of the way it went down, they never landed troops. And it's really hard to get troops into the U.S. It is extraordinarily hard. Is it impossible? No.
Go to our colleges.
Huh?
Our colleges are full of their troops.
Well, see, that's the fight, right? So, and this is what Yuri's talking about. He the propaganda is created and like, look at us right now. We're divided into so many. I mean, the LGBTQ has so many, and that's, I think, probably their number one fulcrum.
Well, they keep adding letters to it.
They keep adding letters to it. And why? Well, because once one group has gotten what they want, right? What their goal was, they have to get another group. So that way more people from the bigger majority, right? The idea, in a perfect scenario, the LGBTQ needs every single man, woman, and child to identify as LGBTQ. But the thing is even within the LGBTQ, that they act like that's a homogenous group of like-minded thinkers. It's not the case. The gays and the lesbians do not identify at all on a majority with anything the trans and the trans rights are doing. And the non-binaries, and the queer folk, and, and all these other things. And now they're trying to even get to the point where races are inside the LGBTQ, where people of color, or, blacks, Mexicans, and eventually, I think at one point, why do you think they call, like, straight white is cis? That is a way for them to categorize and create an identification. Then once they've categorized, created an identification, they can create a victim class. Once you do that and you're a victim, you're allowed to attack the majority. And when you have less, the majority gets smaller and smaller and smaller because more of them continue identifying in these classes.
Well, until they become the majority.
Until they become the majority. But once they become the majority, that's what happened during the Chinese it's a Chinese Communist Revolution, but it was their revolution was on class. Right? It was a class revolution. Ours is not a class revolution. It's arguable. It's a it's kind of a class, but it's a group revolution. So because in China, they convinced the absolute poorest people to rise up, but they rose up with their leadership being the absolute richest people, and then they fought and destroyed everybody in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what they need, the slaves.
Right.
Or the useful idiots, should we say.
Right. And then if that same thing is happening here, but the way it's happening here is they always use the phrasing, right? So there was an interesting stat that came out via one of those ridiculous left-wing news, like a Vice News or something like that. Trans people are disproportionately affected by poverty. So San Francisco implemented universal basic income for only trans people. So at that point, why not identify as trans?
Yeah.
Because you're going to get money that way, or you're going to just lose money because someone else is going to just gain money. And it creates a situation now where there's privileges given to minorities. Affirmative action, right, is a good example of that to start off with. But when you allow that, see, originally you could be like, well, okay, the privileges are given to, say, Black Americans, okay, or they're given to Mexican Americans, or like a race that is determined by birth. But what happens when all of a sudden your benefit to class is not determined by birth?
Well, maybe they want to self-identify. Maybe a white guy wants to identify as a black guy, or a black guy
right.
as a white
well,
guy. Or
you don't even have to
Hispanic.
go. And what's funny is you don't even have to go that hyperbolic anymore. Just identify as non-binary. Something as simple as that.
Non-binary. There is the new term.
Yeah.
Use, yeah.
And
non-binary.
Non-binary.
Not one of the two, right?
Right. It's not one of the two. It's another. And you subvert the language. You destroy the language, so that way definitions of words don't work anymore. For instance, the definition of racism has changed several times in the last decade, and one major time in the last 30 years.
I heard. Actually, there's a show on. It was on Paramount Plus. It's FBI, which is totally ridiculous. Which I have a special love for watching those shows, and they're going after this guy, and then it comes out that he's a white nationalist, and then they attach that to being a Nazi, right? And an anti-Semite and all, and which is really funny because when I've asked this question is I'm a white guy, Caucasian, and if we've got to self-identify, male, and an American, and who I believe to be a patriot. I've served my country. It's cost me dearly in some ways serving my country.
Right.
But I put on the Marine Corps uniform and did my time in the Marine Corps, and I've been involved in politics enough to be able to dedicate more time to it and charity and such. So that kind of identifies me as a white nationalist because I love my nation, right? Well, what about when I was in the Marine Corps, there were Black guys who loved our nation who were serving. So does that make them Black nationalists? And I served with Hispanics. Did that make them Hispanic nationalists or Asian nationalists? And it's just ridiculous.
Right.
And the more we allow their terminology to take root, is fools are we, because we've just got to push back. Go, no, that's not true.
Right.
And or at least your interpretation of it is inaccurate. And there was a guy who used the term niggardly, and he got all kinds of trouble. Was a politician, and he said it. And the problem was, it wasn't the term; it's that the ignorance of those who heard it, who didn't actually know what it was. Because if you look it up in the dictionary, I think it's lazy or something. It's not. It's nothing to do with race.
I believe it's. I don't know as if it was. Because it's an older term, and because I know the word, and that term was, I thought it was thievy, like steely.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought
It could be.
It was a long
I'd have
time
to-
ago when I
I'd
heard
have-
that.
oh, my
but I think it
phone's-
was. I'll go look it up in the dictionary.
Yeah.
Of course, I have an old dictionary, so I'll have it. And but the point is the guy wasn't being racist, but yet the people thought he was, so they accused him of it, and then they beat on him because of it through the airwaves. Because of their ignorance, and then it just becomes a decision to just, hey, we're going with this because now we can look like we're helping the downtrodden and going after the bad white guy. And I can tell you, I've talked to a number of blacks friends of mine, and I had a talk with them about using a term that was somewhat like niggardly when they're greeting each other. I said, stop doing that. Quit demeaning yourselves. You don't want to hear that from anybody else. Anybody else says that, then they're racist. Don't you call each other that.
Right.
And treat each other decently with respect. And actually, they agreed with me after they thought about it for a while. I go, yeah, that's kind of stupid that we do that. I go, yeah, let's just do something else. I mean, you can call me that if you want. I don't care. You can call me whatever you want. But we've got to we have got to demand of that there are some foundational levels of truth. And what Yuri was doing was helping to undermine those foundational truths.
Yeah.
And that's the Soviet Union. I mean,
that's subversion.
That's why, oh yeah, exactly. And that's why they wanted to destroy and infiltrate the church, and destroy the family. I mean, if you read the Communist Manifesto, that's all that. And you look at our society right now through education, that's exactly where we're at. And when we're fighting about stupid stuff like a term or a word or whatever. When I was a kid, I was taught sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And so if somebody calls you a name, just blow it off. Who cares? Yeah,
right.
That shows your small mind.
Here's the definition to subversion. Refers to a process by which the values and principles of a system in place are contradicted or reversed in an attempt to transform the established social order and its structures of power, authority, hierarchy, and social norms.
Yeah, so subversion is actually the means of rebellion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, it's how you get a population to turn against itself, right?
Yeah.
So if the cultural norms was the nuclear family, and it was a degree of nationalism, some kind of nationalistic pride.
I mean, you happen to
is
like the country that you
yeah
live
the
in, and that your children
yes, your
live
yeses are yeses, your no's are no's. Words have
foolish.
meanings, and
now you're stretching it.
huh?
I said now you're stretching it. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
And
Answer
then
people too.
yeah, and then and your, what do you call it? But then when it starts to break down is when all those things no longer matter, right? Your core principles, beliefs, your moral foundations, things where, like they're changing the definition of what is marriage now, right? That's something that they just that is a form of subversion. When you change and it starts in language, right? If you can core change the language in one generation, the next generation of school kids are going to learn that, like, for instance, was it racism now the definition of racism now is
white Republican or white conservative.
Right. No, it's racism is the hierarchy belief, or not the belief even. It's the hierarchy, it's the power institutions of the majority class. So AKA, to be a racist, you just need to be part of the majority class that control the higher institutions.
So if I was, say, a sports star, how would that work? Basketball or
you're still right. Yeah, if you're if you're LeBron,
really want to look at it,
you're LeBron James.
There are fewer white males in those sports and those positions, because the athletic ability of theirs is great on average.
This is where their argument. This is where their argument falls apart. Because what they'll do, so this is happening in football right now. What you're saying is literally happening as we speak in football. The majority of the coaches are white, and the majority of the players are black. So they have akin football is the closest thing that we've got today to slavery.
Yeah,
That's
you know what?
that's their
I would
argument,
love to be one of those $40 million a year slaves.
right? Me too. All day.
Yeah.
Look, sign me
yeah,
up.
you can call me whatever you want, but if I'm making 20, 40 million bucks a year, have at it. You call me whatever. Okay, fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Might even let 'em
they're
whack
saying
me every now and
they're saying the institution of football is racist because it's ran by white people, which is the majority of the population in the country. There's no way you can get around it. The way the problem is that their argument is circular logic. So you cannot argue with it because of the way they've defined their circular reasoning. But the thing is, that was never the definition of racism, right? Racism was that you believe that your race is superior to another race. The end. And you act on that with prejudice.
You know, in 2009, I went down to there was a Tea Party march down in Washington, D.C. My wife and I and a bunch of others, we went down there and we're marching around and carrying flags and such and listening to some speeches and such on the Capitol steps. Well, as I'm walking across, I don't know, it might have been Pennsylvania Avenue, I see there's this black guy standing there, tall, really tall. I think I was like 6'7", string bean kind of guy, right? And he's got this pole, he's got a speaker up on it, he's got signs that say repent or whatever on it, and he's got this mic, and he's blasting out, you know, about repenting and all. And you know, you've seen everybody down there, right?
Yeah.
And Al Sharpton's got a group, and they're marching, and they're wearing like, and I'm going to probably get the colors wrong, but some of the guys are wearing red t-shirts, some of them are wearing black t-shirts, some are wearing like green t-shirts, and they're marching this military march, right? And they're trying to march in step, and it's almost like a cadence.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys were Al Sharpton's guys, and so there's this white guy. He goes up to the black guy with the pole in the speaker, and he's trying to get him to say something. This little white guy trying to say something. Who's probably in his maybe 30, maybe 20s, trying to get him to say something against the guys marching, Al Sharpton's guys. And he sounded racist to me what he was saying. I can't remember exactly what his words were. And here I'm wearing naturally like me my Marine Corps hat or whatever, and cover military term, and. So I'm listening to this, and the guys marching, Al Sharpton's guys, I don't even know what they were marching about, but they were shouting about something anyways as well. The leaders of the march were shouting about something. And so I walked up to the white guy and I said, hey, why don't you shut up? Why don't you just shut up? You know, they have every right to march and complain about whatever they're doing. They're not hurting anybody. They're just trying to make their point. And you have no right to try to stop them from making that point. So stop trying to cause trouble. You know, if you don't like what they're saying, go somewhere else. And anyways, because one of my friends had told me that's what was happening and came and got me. So I ran the guy off. I ran him off right across the street. Told him to beat it and chased him up. And so I'm standing there on the sidewalk watching this, right? Al Sharpton's guys doing their march. 3 of them came over to me and they said, hey, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for sticking up for us. And I said, well, you have every right to say what you're saying. I don't know what you're saying. I might not agree with it, but you have a right to say it. You're not being a problem, you know?
Right.
And this is where we've got to walk.
Mm-hmm.
This is the path we've got to be on, instead of this, I hate you because you think of something different than me, and I'm going to do everything I can to undo your life. And and that's the problem is that the intensity of the argument is insane right now.
Yeah.
And it's not to change someone's mind, it's to destroy them.
Right.
And that's just got to stop, because we just won't survive. United we stand, divided we fall. And I don't care if people want to, if blacks want to protest, Mexicans want to protest, I don't care. Just don't break the law, and go ahead and have peace. I mean, everybody's got something to protest about in this country. The citizenry does.
Right.
I mean, and most of it should be aimed at our politicians, because they're self-serving. They've been taking care of themselves. And a matter of fact, and they militarized, if you will, or at least armored up the DOJ to do their dirty work for them if somebody comes after them.
Yep.
And it's just got to stop.
Yeah.
And,
I agree. And we're going to close this one off for now. Comment, like, and subscribe down below. See you guys on the next one.